Well, a very good evening to you. Thanks for clicking on this special video today discussing where we're at with the pattern and basically what that means down the road in the next week, and of course the big day, Christmas Day. Many of you have been asking, will we see snow in your local area, and will there be a white Christmas? Well, basically the question, the answer should I say, is I simply don't know at the moment. Now, I'm not changing the idea that we're not going to see a white Christmas. However, the pattern itself is a very, very tricky one. We've got we've seen the cold. I did forecast that we would see the cold from about the 15th of December onwards, and of course there has been snowfall across more northern areas before that date. And I have tried to emphasise to not look too much into that specific date of the 15th, but I believe that from the 15th onwards would see the progression of more and more snowfall. Now, the question I have to ask is, when are we going to see this blocking area of high pressure, i.e. the negative North Atlantic Oscillation that has remained persistently positive and well up into the positive index as well. And that, of course, doesn't bode well for sustained cold, both across the majority of North America as well as here in northwestern Europe. And yes, the pattern is doing things that I perhaps don't necessarily want to see. However, it could be mild, it could be raining, there could be no signs of cold air at all. And what I will say is I'm pleased to see that we are seeing the snowfall. We have seen it as far south as Kent. But I'm going to explain to you folks really what the pattern has been doing, what is going on in the atmosphere above our heads, and what does that mean down at the surface. Now, basically up until now we have been seeing a very large trough. So basically the jet stream itself has been dipped south over the North Atlantic, and that's basically been allowing the cold air that's over Greenland. This is the coast of Greenland here. It's been allowed to drop into that trough. Sorry about that. It's been allowed to drop into that trough, the cold air, and what we've been seeing is a very, very powerful Atlantic jet stream, which has been basically not in a straight line, of course, but it's been ripping across the Atlantic at 230 miles per hour over the past few days. And what that's doing is it's pulling all this cold air that's readily available over the North Atlantic and into the UK. And what that's been doing is the moisture. Remember, folks, I have forecasted an Atlantic-driven pattern, but the snow has arrived in basically in the opposite way that I thought it would. I thought that we would see cold building over, Scandinavia and parts of Europe, even northeastern Europe up by Russia, and this would start to bleed southwestwards in towards the UK. And as it meant a still Atlantic-driven pattern, the moisture would connect up with this cold air surging out of the north and northeast, and it would produce the snowfall across the UK. What we have been seeing, however, is cold air being driven down from a westerly direction. We've got enough cold air, very cold air, that's been within a trough over the North Atlantic, and what that's been doing is each system that's been pushing in off the Atlantic from a westerly direction has been tapping this colder air. This cold air then getting forced in over the UK and Ireland, and of course we're seeing heavy snowfall, particularly so across northern areas, but we did see snow, of course, down to more southern areas of England and Wales over the past 24 hours. Now, the problem is, folks, that without that large high pressure that would build over the North Atlantic and Greenland here, we're not then seeing the cold that's over the pole getting forced southwards. Until you see that blocking area of high pressure build and maintain itself, we're not going to see the cold air stationed over a given area. And of course I expected the UK and Ireland to be that given area of cold. But what I will say is this, folks, that we are going to see a milder pattern next week. We are going to see high pressure. We could actually find that we see the mildest conditions in perhaps a few weeks in places like Scotland as well. Temperatures maybe at 10 Celsius or above. We haven't seen that in a while. The pattern remains, dominantly Atlantic driven, You're continuing to hear that. You're probably sick and tired of me saying that. But basically, until you snap that positive North Atlantic oscillation, that trough over the North Atlantic, rather than a high pressure, you're going to see these shots of cold air push in and out rather than sustain itself. What I'm looking to see is I'm wanting to see more, the cold air drift across a snow-covered UK. That is what's going to allow the temperatures to really plummet. And I continue to hold on to the idea that as we progress towards New Year and into the early part of January, I still believe and hold on to the idea that we will see that ridge develop over the North Atlantic, that flip to a negative North Atlantic oscillation and Arctic oscillation. And what that would do is it would help with the warming of the stratosphere. Once you get stratospheric warming taking place, it forces the atmosphere in the upper levels to then sink that cold air down to the surface and southwards. And I still think we're going to see that take place. It might be